Joe Bob Briggs still here. There's that creepy Damien grin there again at the end. You know, people sometimes wonder how Richard Donner got that shot in the church where you can actually see the bullet come out of the gun and travel through space in super slow motion. And what he did was, normally the film runs through the camera at 24 frames a second. But he built this camera that would run at 6,500 frames a second, however fast that is. Then he had the guy shoot the gun, and the only problem was you got to have so much light on a gun to see that bullet that the lights burned the guy's hand that was shooting the gun. So they had to redo the whole thing with the gunman wearing this black glove, and it still burned his hand, but they got that famous shot of the bullet traveling through space. There were 3 more Omen movies after that, but none of them were really as good as the original. Damien, Omen 2 came out in 1978, The Final Conflict in 1981, and Omen 4, remember that? It was shown on TV in 1991, never even made it to the theaters. Never even made it to a real network. They showed it on Fox Network. Okie dokie, I want to remind you that next week our double feature will be Dragon Slayer, Swords and Loincloths and Magicians and Stuff, starring Peter MacNicol, followed by The Master Gunfighter, which stars Tom Laughlin, Billy Jack himself, in this picture that he directed in the late 70s. It's about this kung fu samurai gunfighter who defends the helpless Indians of early California against the evil Spanish hacienda owners. So, pretty good week, or halfway decent week. And let's not dwell on how good a week it is next week. All right. Right now, we're moving from the subtle special effects of The Omen to the overwhelmingly goofy special effects of Village of the Giants. Now, I don't know exactly how to describe this movie, except it's by this 60s exploitation producer, Bert I. Gordon. And Bert had his own ideas about how to make movies. Bert lived out where the bus don't stop no more, you know? Bert read the novel Food of the Gods by H.G. Wells, and he thought, well, this is a pretty good story, but it'd be lots better if we had giant dancing ducks and 8 evil drug-crazed teenagers who become 30 feet tall and take over a town, and maybe a bunch of lame rock and roll tunes in there, too. So anyway, it's a minor cult classic from 1965. We're going to have a little fun with it as we go along. But let me give you those drive-in totals. We have no dead bodies, 1 breast, multiple go-go dancing, 1 mud bog orgy, giant cat, giant dog, giant dancing ducks, a giant roast duck barbecue, a giant tarantula, insect electrocution, 1 fist fight, giant juvenile delinquents, gratuitous Ron Howard, back when he was little Ronnie Howard, gratuitous midgets, smoke bomb foo, 2 stars. Check it out. You're not going to believe this movie. I won't even mention the guy who dangles helplessly from a giant bikini bra in danger of being crushed to death at any moment. It's terrifying. And it's kind of every man's dream. So roll it. They do the jerk in this movie. They do the swim. They do the frug. Those wacky teens.
From Village of the
Well, are you catatonic yet? How many times so far have you spoken things directly to the TV screen? You know, Bert I. Gordon, who made this movie, he went around giving interviews before it came out saying how when he was making this movie, he got so caught up in the idea of this town overrun by giant animals and teenagers because Ronnie Howard's chemistry set blew up. The idea of this was just so compelling to him that he actually started believing the movie. He started believing that this could happen in an American city, and he said that with a straight face in interviews all across America. Anyhow, the stiff kid who feeds the ducks the gooey stuff and plots how he's going to make $1 million, that's Tommy Kirk, who at one time was one of the biggest stars in America. For 4 years, he starred in every blockbuster Disney movie that came out. Old Yeller, The Shaggy Dog, Swiss Family Robinson, The Absent-Minded Professor. And then they made the movie that was supposed to be the greatest Disney movie in history, and he starred in that. Unfortunately, it was one of the biggest flops in Disney history. I'm talking about Babes in Toyland. And so Disney decided that Tommy Kirk was over. So they let him go. And here he is 4 years later working in just about the cheapest part of the movie business there is, but he's still big enough name to get star billing in this movie. He was one of those what hit me guys, you know, who don't understand how they can be so famous one day and then just kind of bumming around the next day. But he hung around Hollywood a few more years, but the last time he acted was in 1976 when he was 35 years old in a picture called My Name is Legend. Did anybody see that? Never seen that movie. In fact, most of the teenagers in this movie aren't teenagers at all, but they're child actors that are well into their 20s trying to jumpstart their adult careers. And who could have guessed that the biggest one of them all would turn out to be little Ronnie Howard, who's kind of used for comic relief in the movie. Okay, back to the immortal Village of the Giants. The redhead who does the wild dancing, Tony Basil. Remember that song, Hey Mickey, 1982? I've got 2 words to say about Tony Basil. Yummy. And she's the one I want to know about. Where did she go? Okay, the terrifying scene in which Tommy Kirk fends off a giant tarantula with a pitchfork and narrowly averts electrocution in his basement. Village of the Giants. Village of the Giants, by the way, was filmed in Perceptovision, a new process invented by Bird-Eye Gordon that was first used in this movie and last used in this movie. I have no idea what it is, and neither does Bert. Anyhow, you may have noticed in the opening credits that Bert claims this story is based on H.G. Wells' novel, The Food of the Gods, which is kind of like saying Monstervision is based on Oliver Stone's JFK, because Oliver filmed in Dallas, we film in Dallas. That's where the resemblance ends, you know. Well, H.G. Wells made a story about giant animals and people. Bird-Eye Gordon made a story about giant animals and people, and that's about the extent of the resemblance. The strange thing is that 11 years later, Bert did a straight remake of The Food of the Gods, but it's hilarious too, mostly because it stars Marjo Gortner. It's one of Marjo's best roles. I realize that's like saying the best airline food, but still. Anyway, Bert directed, produced, did all the special effects of the giants rampaging through the little town, and he was especially proud of his giant dancing ducks. Now, he claims that the ducks are doing both the twist and the jerk. I didn't notice the ducks doing anything except the quack, but maybe I missed some subtle movement in the wings or something. Anyway, Bert's got a lot more surprises left, so let's get back to the picture. Have you noticed that the cameraman in this thing loves close-ups of breasts and buttocks, especially buttocks? Every time they start dancing, all we see is bouncing buns. I'm not complaining. I'm just the messenger here, but the man has a fetish.
Back to Monstervision host Joe Bob Briggs on Village of the Giants.
Oh, man. Well, the cast is literally busting out of their clothes as we commence the frightening part of the plot in which giant juvenile delinquents terrorize the town. And, whoa, do you recognize the guy playing Fred? The one they dare him to eat that goo, and so he says, okay, then we all take the goo. That's Beau Bridges, 24 years old, just barely getting started on his film career after he gave up his dream of playing pro basketball. He was only 5'9", but he played basketball for the University of Hawaii. He wanted to go to the pros. Anyway, he's not the only famous young actor among the juvenile delinquents. You might recognize the one called Horsey, Johnny Crawford, the son on The Rifleman, which had just gotten canceled, so he ended up doing this movie. And the one called Pete, this one you'll never get. Tim Rooney, son of Mickey Rooney. Okay, enough of that. Let's go. The giant teenage gang wants to dance, of course. Watch this. Can you imagine what it'd be like to have Mickey Rooney as your father? Let's not even speculate, okay?
Back to Monstervision host Joe Bob Briggs on Village of the Giants.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm just stunned by these state-of-the-art special effects we're watching here. It's hard to tell who's who in the credits, but I think that the blonde who picks the guy up while she's dancing and makes him hang onto her bra for dear life, a scene reminiscent of the great Harold Lloyd, by the way, hanging onto that clock over Broadway. Anyway, I think that blonde is Tisha Sterling, the daughter of Ann Sothern. But don't hold me to that. In fact, don't hold me to anything on this movie, because my favorite part is coming up here, where the good teenagers, even though they're midgets compared to the bad teenagers, try to save the town by lassoing one of these giants and running circles around him with their motorcycles and hot rods, reminiscent of the special effects in the Emmy-winning Gulliver's Travels, don't you think? Well, here, you'll see. Roll it. And Charla Doherty, who plays Nancy, the female lead, she's just kind of a whiner, isn't she? They always had girls like that in these teen movies. Don't do it, Mike. All their lines are about their boyfriends. Well, I don't know, Mike. Come on, Mike, you can do it. You just want to kick him upside the head, you know?
Back to Monstervision host Joe Bob Briggs on Village of the Giants.
Well, I promised lassoing, and I delivered lassoing, didn't I? Now we're heading for the home stretch, complete with spearing, wild dancing, chicken munching, and a man who rappels down a girl's giant bra like a mountaineer so that he can dangle in the valley of the hematomas and stick a giant ether cotton ball directly in her face. Would I make something like that up? Watch this, the startling conclusion to Bert I. Gordon's 1965 masterpiece, Village of the Giants. See, in the 60s, you could do that stuff. You could have a man hanging off a woman's breast larger than life on screen. Think of the size of the stunt bra that they had to build to do that. People just don't care about the craft anymore, you know?
Back to Monstervision host Joe Bob Briggs on Village of the Giants.
How about that midget joke at the end? I'll bet that had them rolling in the aisles. I wonder if the moral of that movie was that smoking will stunt your growth, because whatever Ronnie Howard was using there in the last scene, it looked a lot like cigarette smoke he was scattering everywhere. Ron and Beau Bridges were about the only guys to survive this turkey. Of course, Ron was already on Andy Griffith, and he had an active film career from the time he was 3 years old. But within 12 years of making this movie, he would already be directing his first film, which was, does anybody know? Grand Theft Auto. Good car chase flick, produced by the great Roger Corman. Okie dokie, that's it for me tonight. Remember next week, Dragon Slayer and the Master Gunfighter, and we'll be on late due to the basketball doubleheader. But till then, I'm Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die. And our thought for the day is, when you open a new bag of cotton balls, is the top one meant to be thrown away? All right, try this one. Doesn't it ever bother you that doctors call what they do practice?